I'm grateful to Professor Rajgopalan and Manish for giving me an opportunity to be a part of this webinar, basically on the uh, Teachers' Day. I think that's really a great coincidence for that matter. I'm going to speak on basics of shoulder arthroplasty. And the shoulder actually enjoys the greatest range of motion. It has an inherent bony instability, and the stability depends upon the soft tissues. And you can see this, there is very little glenoid bone stock, and therefore it's not like a stable joint of the hip, the acetabulum and the femur. So the shoulder arthroplasty, the incidence wise, comes third after the hip and the knees. And a little bit of recapitulation about the anatomy. The scapula is 30-degree anteverted to the coronal plane. However, the glenoid is retroverted by about 4 to 15 degrees. And the humeral article surface is also retroverted. So this is actually in contrast to the hip, where when we put the joint, we put it into little anteversion for that matter. And there is the relative posterior humeral offset. We will talk about if some important landmarks. Bicipital groove. This is the bicipital groove where you have the tendon of the long end of the biceps. It's an important landmark because it helps you in judging the height of the prosthesis, particularly in the setting of a trauma where all that is broken in the humerus. Then when you put a prosthesis, you have to judge it by the tension in the long head of the biceps. And also, when you put the prosthesis, the fin of the prosthesis, it is kept about 10 to 12 millimeter posterior to the bicipital groove. So that gives the correct retroversion in the humerus, which is about 30 to 40 degrees. The shoulder arthroplasty has mainly can be divided into three types. One is the hemi-arthroplasty. The second is the shoulder arthroplasty, and the third is the reverse total shoulder arthroplasty. The main indications for arthroplasty of the shoulder would be pain, severe loss of function, and end-stage arthritis, which can be because of osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, avascular necrosis, post-traumatic arthritis. However, trauma has now also become an important indication for the shoulder arthroplasty, particularly proximal comminuted proximal humerus fractures in the elderly with osteoporotic bones. These are the various prosthesis types which are available, which are either for hemi replacement or for total replacement for that matter. Let's talk about the hemi-arthroplasty, and this is the commonest indication is used commonly in the trauma, and also otherwise people have used with good results in glenohumeral arthritis, but now it has become less common. The hemi-arthroplasty has become less common with the advent of glenoid resurfacing or replacement, which gives better results. So in trauma, what are the indications? Four-part fractures and fracture dislocations, like you see in the picture here. The head of the humerus is lying into the axilla. The head splitting fractures, which cannot be reconstructed. Three-part fractures, particularly in the old osteoporotic patients, and malunions and non-unions of the proximal humerus fractures. So these are the indications where you would do a replacement. So here is an example. This is a fracture dislocation of the humerus. You can see it so well. And then this is also the head splitting. That's the head of the humerus where actually this cannot be reconstructed. And therefore, this is an indication for doing a hemi replacement of the shoulder. And some of the tricks would be the prosthesis size should be identical to the original head, like for any other prosthesis for that matter. And the important thing is, as I told you, about the height of the prosthesis, because as I told you in the proximal humerus, the head is removed, and all the greater tuberosity and the lesser tuberosity, they're all broken into pieces, and therefore it is very important to be able to put the prosthesis in the correct height and the correct length. And so this actually can also be judged by after putting the trial one. If you are able to put the lesser tuberosities, if they are not too comminuted, maybe that also gives an idea that you are the height of this thing is correct. But otherwise, as I told you earlier, the tension of the biceps tendon, and that must be preserved that in your dissection, that gives you an idea about the tension of the soft tissues and the correct positioning of the prosthesis. And obviously, as I told you earlier, this has to be put into certain degrees of retroversion. Another important point is tuberosity repair. This is important whether you are doing a internal fixation by a plate or screws, or even for doing an arthroplasty. So it requires a stable fixation for an optimal results. One has to use heavy non-absorbable sutures. Avoid using wire sutures, because they sometimes may break. And the sutures are actually important. They are passed through the bone tendon junction and not through the soft bone of the tuberosities, because they will crush it further. Maybe sometimes if there is too comminuted, one may use the bone grafts between the tuberosity and the tuberosity metaphyseal junction. However, when cementing the stem, keep the cement away from the tuberosities, because if the cement comes in between the tuberosities and the shaft, then perhaps because the fracture will not, those tuberosities will not unite with the main stem. And obviously you have to balance the appropriate soft tissues. So here is an example of a comminuted fracture and replacement done by the hemi-arthroplasty, and that's the result at the end of 1 year. Let's talk about the total shoulder arthroplasty. This actually, other than the humeral component, this has the glenoid component, which is actually a polyethylene component, and it alleviates pain and improves function. The replacement consists of both the humeral as well as the glenoid. Actually, the humerus is the convex part, like the head of the humerus, and the glenoid is the concave one. However, one important caveat is that this is done, the total shoulder arthroplasty is done only in patients with intact rotator cuff. There have been multiple studies which says that in osteoarthritis, the total shoulder has given good results, about 10 to 15 years survival, and the total shoulder arthroplasty is better than just the hemi-arthroplasty. In total shoulder arthroplasty, age and general health of the patient is also very important. The younger patients, more active patients, put more strain on the shoulder joint arthroplasty, and therefore there are more chances of glenoid loosening and wear. Whereas the young RA patient, rheumatoid arthritis patients, they benefit better because they have polyarticular disease. The tissues are not very strong, not very normal, and that actually limits their activity. So the joint replacement lasts longer in rheumatoid arthritis. The active older patients have the best results after total shoulder arthroplasty. And these are the this thing we just now talked about. This is the hemi-arthroplasty, just the replacement here. We saw that. And this is the total shoulder arthroplasty with the glenoid replacement also performed. The total shoulder arthroplasty is indicated, I said that, I'm repeating it, is when the rotator cuff is intact. And so what if the rotator cuff is not functional? So let's recapitulate the anatomy. The rotator cuff muscles consist of four: the muscle, the suprascapularis, the subscapularis, the supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and teres minor. All of them, they work together to stabilize the humeral head in the glenoid fossa during shoulder motion. So this is what the rotator cuff does. The normal shoulder, the deltoid forces are acting upwards, whereas the rotator cuff muscles, they have a force downwards. So what happens is when the deltoid is abducting the arm, the rotator cuff will keep it lower down against the glenoid. So that will allow the full rotation and abduction of the shoulder. So this is the function of the rotator cuff. So what happens if there is a massive rotator cuff tear? There would be superior migration of the head of the humerus that you can see here. This is now migrated upwards. It is touching the acromion. And there occurs what they describe as acetabularization of the coracoacromial arch. So this becomes like an acetabulum, and whereas this becomes like the femoral head. So now it becomes a this kind of joint. So what will happen if a total shoulder arthroplasty is done in a cuff deficiency? This will rise up, and there will be rocking horse phenomenon, which will cause loosening of the glenoid component. So therefore, in those situations, the reverse total shoulder arthroplasty is the solution for that. And here it is just the reverse. That's why it is called as reverse. That means the humeral component is concave and the glenoid component is convex. And this was designed in 1985 by a French orthopedic surgeon. So what is the basic concept, design concept of the reverse shoulder? The basic concept is shifting of the center of the joint rotation medially, which increases the lever arm of the muscle. And this is how it does. In normal situations, what you have is the center of rotation is in the convex head of portion of the head of the humerus. And whereas in reverse total shoulder, what will happen is that because now the convex surface comes onto the glenoid, so the arc of rotation is also in the center of this glenoid, and this causes medialization of the center and lowering of the humerus. Therefore, it increases the lever arm and increases the strength in the deltoid, because the reverse shoulder uses the deltoid to achieve active rotation. So it is not dependent on the rotator cuff for that matter. And so this is how it is. Helps. It happens rather. So this is the uh, L is the lever arm, and this increases by medialization and lowering, and which increases the force in the deltoid. And that acts exponentially. The indications for reverse shoulder would be the glenohumeral joint arthritis associated with irreparable rotator cuff tear, absent rotator cuff, complex humeral fractures, and revision of failed total shoulder orthoplasty, and in elderly patients. Contraindication would be obviously where the deltoid is deficient. Just to quickly run through the steps, the beach chair position, deltopectoral approach, and you would take the cuts in the humerus. And once the humerus cut is taken, then you approach the glenoid and work on the glenoid, and then you put it a metal base plate, and then you fix the head, the convex head onto the glenoid side, composed component on the glenoid side. And this is the humeral canal, and you are putting in the humeral component with a concavity plastic at this end. And this is how the articulated joint will look in the operation theater. This is an example in a fresh fracture, comminuted fracture of the proximal humerus. And this is after the reverse shoulder surgery done. And there are articles which prove the better or the efficacy of reverse shoulder in fracture situations, 2013, 2014. And this is another patient who had a non-union and a rotator cuff deficient shoulder, reverse shoulder orthoplasty done. And that's the range of movements, the external rotation, the internal rotation, and so on. This can also be used for failed fixation. You can see here, this is now eroding the glenoid articular surface. The CT scan shows the same thing. And this is corrected by reverse shoulder orthoplasty. And that's his result, functionally reasonably good result. And this is the multiple surgical scars. Another patient of the division from an osteosynthesis, rotator cuff orthopathy and secondary osteoarthritis, reverse shoulder done. And that's the range of movement. The operated side is on the left side. And this is another one for osteoarthritis. That's the result. This is another 85-year young person with reverse shoulder, and that's his range of movement. A very important slide. This patient, same patient, he had the two procedures done. This is the standard hemi-arthroplasty, and that's the reverse shoulder. And you can see the functional result after each surgery. This is another patient, 88-year-old female. He has severe osteoarthritis of the shoulder. And for some earlier fractures, she had this plate in place. So we had to do the reverse shoulder. So we just removed the earlier proximal screws so that the reverse shoulder could be done. And this is the functional range of movement at the end of about 6 months. The reverse shoulder is also actually can be done to convert conventional shoulder orthoplasty to reverse shoulder orthoplasty. The complications are the notching, infection, loosening, and also breakage of the implants and implant failure. This has actually come out from the bone. I will end up with with this particular case. There was a 72-year-old male who had injury to his left shoulder about 8 months back and inability to move the arm. There was diffuse tenderness. The only positive finding was the muscle atrophy and global restriction of the movement. This is for my postgraduate students. This is his X-ray, and I would like to draw your attention to look at this. There is an overlap between in the shoulder here. That's the glenoid outline and that's the humerus. So if you see an overlap, otherwise it looks normal, you should be suspicious. This is most likely the posterior dislocation of the shoulder, and you can see here, this is the glenoid. The head of the humerus has gone back, and this is the very big Hill-Sachs lesion. And this was since 8 months old in an elderly patient, and there is also a lot of arthritis of the glenohumeral joint. The CT scan also shows the head of the humerus lying posteriorly. And this obviously, the MRI shows the same thing with deficiency in the rotator cuff as well. So the diagnosis was neglected posterior dislocation, glenohumeral arthritis, and rotator cuff deficient. So obviously the choice of treatment would be reverse total shoulder arthroplasty. And this was the post-operative X-ray. This was his range of movement at the end of 6 weeks, and this was at the end of 6 months, and that's his range of motion. The operated side is the left side. So to conclude, the hemi-arthroplasty is indicated mainly for trauma these days. The total shoulder arthroplasty is indicated for osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, particularly in the middle-aged, not very elderly persons, in inflammatory as well as osteoarthritis. And the reverse shoulder is gaining more popularity now, particularly with the aging population, and particularly for trauma, osteoarthritis, rotator cuff arthropathy, generally above the age of 69 or 70 years of age. Thank you very much for your attention.